Good day, y'all. Thank you for stopping by Grace-Ministries USA. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with God. You are always welcome here in beautiful North Carolina here at Grace-Ministries. We welcome you. We hope that you get something from God's word. If he adds value to your life in any way, give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Help us grow the channel. Help us get God's word out there. If he added value to your life, that is, right? Because God's word is powerful. And in the right context, it can begin to change situations, break chains off of you, these burdens that we carry around, this baggage that we lug around from our past, from our childhood, from what we're experiencing currently. Yesterday, we still don't know how to deal with all this, but with Jesus, with our daily devotional here at Grace Ministries, we are beginning to understand what God is doing not only in the world, but in our life. So if you want some more of that, if you need a spiritual compass for all believers, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you do, what's your background, none of that matters. What matters here is that you want to change, you want to grow, and you want to move forward with fellow believers that want to do good, that love each other, that want to help each other and build things up, not tear them down. And in the modern world, it's hard to find reflection and connection with your faith, with people who are of the same mindset. It can be daunting and overwhelming, but at the same time, y'all, it's rewarding and essential. The bread of life is like God's word is like oxygen, right? We need it. We need oxygen. We need food just like we need God's word. That is why I began this devotional series with Grace Ministries to deal with those things that come our way that we don't have answers for, that we're not sure how to go about. Here at Grace Ministries, we turn to the Bible, we get God involved. And when you do that, you don't have to worry and think so much. You pray and you give it to the Lord and move forward in his word. I don't know whether he is a sinner, the man replied, but I know this. I was blind and now I can see. John chapter 9 is where we're at today, verse 25, y'all. This month, we are journeying through the Gospel of John, as I explained in the previous devotional. Today, our passage is from John chapter 9. Jesus and his disciples encountered a man who had been blind his entire life. His entire life, he was blind. How terrible. The disciples asked the Lord, why was this man born blind? Like, why is all this heartache and pain in the world, man, if you are who you say? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? Was it because of something he did, said, the way he acted, behaved, etc., etc.? That man, it may have seemed like an odd question at the time about someone who had been blind since birth, right? But some Jewish people believed that it was possible for unborn babies to sin in the womb. Whatever prompted their question, the disciples, the man's blindness was an abstract theological puzzle. Like, they couldn't figure it out. Why is there so much heartache and pain in the world? That daunting question. They had no real compassion for him. Like, they didn't know how to, they lacked humanity. They lacked empathy and concern for this guy. Jesus, on the other hand, did not. Jesus explained that the man's blindness wasn't the result of his parents' sin. In fact, the man's blindness gave God an opportunity to work in his life in a way that would never, ever, ever experience. That is, people that could see, sighted people would ever experience. The Apostle Paul makes a similar point in 2 Corinthians 12. Paul had some kind of disability or affliction that hindered his work. For me, it's my back, torn disc, herniated disc, all kinds of structural damage throughout. He called it a thorn in my flesh. That's what I call it. 3 times he asked God to remove it. And 3 times God said, not so much, bro. My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. Our flaws and weaknesses can bring us closer to God if we look at them from the right perspective, the right point of view. They remind us that we need him. We need him. They encourage us to depend on him, essentially. Jesus showed the power of God in the man's life in a hands-on way, right? He wanted to get into the details of this man's life. The man's blindness wasn't abstract theological concept to him. He spit on the ground. I've talked about this before because it's fascinating. Made mud with his saliva, water, dirt, create mud, just sprayed it off my Jeep, and rubbed it on the man's eyes. He told him to wash off the mud in the pool. Like, what? Go spit, rub some dirt. He could see after that. The dude could see after that. The light of the world led the man out of his literal darkness. His literal darkness. You can probably guess on which day of the week the healing occurred. The Sabbath. That's right. When the Jewish leaders heard about it, they were again outraged. How dare Jesus ignore their religious rules to change someone's life forever by giving him the ability to see for the first time, right? Sickening, man. These people are disturbing. Some Pharisees argued that Jesus couldn't possibly have been sent by God because he worked on the Sabbath, right? They wanted to put a disclaimer on God, the creator of the universe. The man may have been healed of his physical blindness, but their spiritual blindness was still a huge obstacle. Other Pharisees rightly argued also that an ordinary sinner couldn't perform such a miraculous healing. This guy, humans can't pray things into existence. Another lie, misconception. Things got so absurd that the religious leaders sent for the man's parents and tried to get them to admit that their son hadn't been blind at all. Tried to pay the parents off to lie to the public. This stuff's been going on for thousands of years, y'all. The parents carefully avoided that matter. They're like, They had been told that anyone who even suggested that Jesus was the Messiah would be kicked out of the synagogue. Again, rules, regulations, policies, processes, a bunch of crap. So the leaders again sent for the formerly blind man. They tried to get him to admit that he been healed by an ordinary sinner, just some dude. No, and not the Messiah, right? Because they couldn't let this get out to the public. If this man were not from God, he could have done it. The man replied in verse 33, the outraged religious leaders threw him out of the synagogue, threw this dude out. Their unwillingness to see Jesus for who he really was clouded their very judgment in practically every other matter. Because when essentially every other area of your life, because if you have flawed thinking, you do things one way in one area of your life, chances are, they couldn't see or admit it, right? They didn't want to. They knew the obvious. We all see it, but we hear differently. Their pride kept them in spiritual darkness. Their ego edging God out. They had no interest in the light. They didn't want goodness, right? Check this out. I want you to think about this. Have you ever been spiritually blind? I have. To something that later became clear. It's happening now in my life. How did this change affect your faith? When I started realizing I was being lied to all over, not just media, social media, the news, all this, when I started to realize that, I began opening the Bible and it affected my faith in ways that I can't explain. I don't need to turn on the TV, the media, the news. I already know what's going to happen. I know the end of the story. We win. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to go live my life and do me. God's with me. He promises to never leave nor forsake us, right? When I was hit by that drunk driver and walked away from that accident, all my airbags went off, totaled my vehicle. 55 miles an hour was the last time I looked at the speedometer. I walked away. Yeah, I got structural damage, thorns in my side, all that stuff I already had anyway. I walked away from that. So did the lady that hit me. Okay, I've had some things happen where I had to say, I think God is who he says. And I've challenged him and I've prayed and I've got alone, and that's my wish and hope for you. So as you go about your week, let's do it. Let's stop. Let's get alone. Let's tell God what's on our heart, what's on our mind, even if it's bad, even if it's negative, even if you don't like him, even if you disagree. Because I'm telling you right now, he already knows. So you might as well just tell him. And if you don't want to do life with God, then don't. He's going to be with you whether you want to or not. So that's why he's tugging on your heart right now. That is not going to go away. It's internal, eternal. It's another gift. But anyway, story for another day. That's my wish. That's my hope. God bless you. I'm rambling, ranting now, and I got to go. God bless y'all. Have a great rest of your week. Stay tuned for some future devotionals from my boy, John. I love studying the Bible. Get fired up over it, man. Got to take care of the mind, the body, and the soul. God bless you. Take care.